What is going on, YouTube people? New York Cards Comics here today. Another edition of the weekly sports card market update, Valentine's Day weekend edition. Recording this early on Saturday afternoon. Wife and I are getting ready to head out and see the new Captain America movie later today. So knocking this one out prior to getting the evening's festivities kicked off. West Coast Card Show going on this weekend. That's way out of my neck of the woods as I am sitting here in a I don't want to, snowstorm is too strong of a word where I'm at, but in definitely some nasty weather for sure out there in Northeast Ohio this weekend. If you partook in the West Coast Card Show, fire off down below, aka the Burbank Show, and let me know how that went. Seemed pretty solid based off of what I could see on social, but you know, I'm only seeing through the lens of a camera there. I'm not in the room where it happened. So feel free to fire off if you happen to make it out to that show and let us know the vibes. I did not have any local shows this weekend. There was one. It's one I don't typically go to. And with the weather this weekend just being kind of crappy, Valentine's Day, I just decided to hang in and not head out anywhere. I will have the Ship Shawana show coming up in just 2 weeks, actually exactly 2 weeks from today, March 28th and March 1st. That'll be a big one in the new expanded building. So excited to check that one out. I still have footage from the Washington/Pittsburgh card show that I recorded that I just have not had time to take a look at. So maybe we'll get that up sometime this week as well. Before we dive too deep in, shout out to channel partner and sponsor of the weekly sports card market update, ComC.com. They have a baseball auction event coming up. They will be at the Philly Card Show, which is coming up in March. I don't think I'm going to make that one. I went to the last Philly Card Show. I don't think I will make the March one. But if you have not checked out ComC, what are you doing? Great spot to buy and sell cards of all different values. Later today, I am on the hunt for a big card. We'll see if I can knock it out. It's one of those days. There's a card I'm chasing. It's up for auction, and it's a DC Sports 87 sale, I think. And anytime when you have a card like that you know you've been looking for a while to kind of knock things off, and it pops up and you're bidding on it, and it just doesn't end until like 10 o'clock tonight. That's my day today, is constantly looking at that card and figure out how hard I want to mega bid it to really kind of not 100% finish off a collection, but basically finish off a collection goal pretty early in the year. So it would be nice to knock it down. We'll see if I do. Obviously, if I do a video coming on it later, I'll probably talk about it either way. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the weekly market update. News first. I did a standalone video on this over on the Pokemon channel. And this is not sports card specific, but you know, this made the rounds this week in the national media. Credit card debt hits a record 1.2 trillion. I would love, you know, there was a Facebook post a little bit ago about a guy hitting a monster card that, you know, probably $100,000 card. And his commentary was, thank God this bailed me out of a lot of trouble. It wasn't, oh my God, I'm so excited to hit this. It was relief. I wonder how many people chasing break spots, ripping wax, buying singles are in over their head financially on this stuff and just chasing, trying to get back out of debt by hitting a lucky lottery ticket in a break or a box or flipping a single or whatever. I would love to know the amount of hobby participants that have any sort, you know, massive is going to be relative to the person. Let's just say has a decent chunk of hobby credit card debt racked up, specifically from cards or collectibles, to put it in a more broad sense. Kind of scary when you think about it. I have to imagine that the number is probably higher than any of us would like to imagine. Maybe not necessarily the viewership of like a channel like this, just because of the age bracket, but I wonder if people younger have gotten in a little over their heads. Not that youth has anything to do with it, but you know, you have less experience, more prone to make dumb decisions. That's when I racked up my credit card debt on cards, was in my 20s. But just thought it was kind of, interesting to think about as we kind of spin things forward. The market seems like it's actually, relatively speaking, in a decent spot for more established stuff. But I don't know. This seeing that number floating around and that it's at a record high and probably not going down anytime soon just really makes you wonder where all this stuff ends up at some point in time. And a little bit more hobby news. Shout out to Blabbing About Slabbing. They have their own channel, which they had a live stream the other day. They're also, you may recognize them as co-hosts of the Spitball and Cards podcast. They had Mike Mahan on. Great guest. Was really a good interview. I would highly encourage you to go check it out if you didn't. The entire live stream is about 2 hours long. I think Mike Mahan was on for about 35, 45 minutes, maybe even close to an hour. I don't remember the exact length, but he was on for a while. Really good conversation and a lot of good news bits kind of filtered out of there. And he really kind of talked about some of the processes behind the scenes on why things kind of work like they do and why certain things kind of end up this way and things that they're working on to try to improve things. So I won't spoil it because I would highly encourage you to go check it out. I will talk about one thing because the biggest piece of news from it was because the hobby got up in arms. Top Series 1 obviously came out this week, and the black parallel was missing / replaced with I think it's a black foil out of 10 instead of the regular black parallel. And the traditionalists got pretty fired up about it. The black parallel is one of the more collectible ones out of Topps Series 1. And they announced that they're bringing it back. Topps Series 2 will have the old school black parallels in it for Series 1 and Series 2. And they basically confirmed that it is not going anywhere going forward. So it's nice to see. Listen, I could sit here and make videos all week long griping about things that Topps and Fanatics do, but it is nice to actually have something positive to talk about out of there. And it does show, I think we get mad at these companies, justifiably so in a lot of cases, but I think they listen more than we realize. Now, they might not always do what we want with that feedback, but I do think that they hear it, and at some point it does seep down or seep up to the powers that be, and actual change can get made. We have seen that with other things in the hobby in the past, and this is just kind of the latest example of it. I think the thing that frustrates people is that they want to see things done quickly, and a lot of times this stuff takes time to play out. Now, in this case, they reacted to this very quickly. They announced that I think like a month ago when that news hit that the black parallel was gone. They obviously got a ton of community feedback, and it seems like it was an easy enough fix for going forward that they ended up changing it. So once again, nice to see. There's, like I said, there's a few other things that he talks about in there that I took away as positives, and that shows that they are at least semi paying attention to what's going on out there. So go check that out over at Blabbing About Slabbing. It was their live stream from earlier this week, and great conversation. Great job by those guys getting him as a guest and the topics and stuff that they talked about. Speaking of slow moving and inaction by big companies, let's talk about backyard breaks. In the update here, Collect Media, Ben Burrows did a little breakdown of kind of like where we stand as of Friday, and nowhere is basically where we stand. He does a good job breaking everything down here on, kind of where we sit, who we have heard from, who we haven't heard from. The big one was some confirmation of some things that I was already pretty sure of to begin with, is that Panini and Upper Deck have no formal partnership with them. So everyone clamoring for Panini to come out and say something, or Upper Deck to come out and say something, they don't have a direct account. What are they supposed to do? They sell to the wholesalers, and then distribution sells to whoever they sell to. Topps, though, with the no comment, was a interesting take from this. Ben said he's reached out to them multiple times and gotten no comment across the board from Topps on it. That, to me, that's the most disappointing one to see, along with some of the larger shows basically saying no comment on it as well, is a little disappointing, because this seems like the biggest layup winner easy PR hit that you could possibly get by coming out and saying, you know what? Nope, we're not letting them set up anymore. We're not doing business with them anymore. And from a Topps perspective, they have plenty of other channels to move product. I don't know that they need Backyard Breaks as much as, you know, Whatnot needs Backyard Breaks if you're breaking it down between those two companies, and Whatnot continues to do nothing. So, I mean, sadly, this is not that surprising that it seems like this is going to go by the wayside, just like everything else kind of does in the card space. Don't get me wrong, people are not going to completely forget this, and I'm sure it's going to have some lasting impacts on their business down the road when they try to go do stuff with companies going forward. They're probably going to be told, nah, I don't think we want you here. No, we don't want you representing us this or representing us that. But generally speaking, to the best of our knowledge, they haven't really been hit that hard. Now, maybe behind the scenes they have been, and we don't know about it, but that's the problem. We don't know, so we can only assume or go off the information that we have. But they basically got a slap on the wrist, and it's business as usual, which, you know, you thought maybe this would be the one. We'll see. We'll see if there's more things that come out with this over time. But as of right now, it seems like this is where we're at with this, that no one really wants to kind of fire the hammer down on these guys. Another thing that popped up late this week I didn't get a chance to talk about. Tom Brady gets into the hobby hardcore, taking a 50% ownership stake in Card Vault. That is Chris Costa's little chain of stores that he has up in the Boston area. And this is not just a, hey, you know, we're going to throw your name on here and go. He's a 50% owner, so he is involved. They already discussed expanding out into other avenues, getting in, you know, in other locations. Don't know where those are going to be at yet. That's something Jeff Wilson with Cards HQ has discussed as well. But he's teased that he's opening a second store. You have Fanatics opening a store in London. So we're seeing more and more of these franchise style stores that are going to be popping up over time as the hobby continues to grow, with Fanatics getting the, you know, full license arsenal here within the next year, that they could really ramp things up. And listen, Brady getting involved is a big deal. I mean, he has a lot of power, just his name alone. And hell, if he wants to juice sales for a day, all he's got to do is be like, hey, I'm hanging out at the shop. I'm going to do an autograph signing. He has probably a crazy Rolodex of people that he could get to show up somewhere to do stuff. And it also shows his deepening ties in the sports card space. He's already buddies with Ruben. And he probably has a better idea than anyone else of what the future looks like, and a little look behind the scenes, because he's so tight with Fanatics and Ruben. So he probably has a pretty good idea what's coming and wants to get in ahead of it. Now, whether or not that works out, whole different story. But it is an interesting data point at the least, and at the most, it could be put a little bit of pressure on shops depending on where they open up at. I don't think every local store in the world is shaking in their boots or anything crazy like that. Most LCSs have a pretty good community built around them for one reason or another. Now, if you are in an area where you don't have a lot of competition and you've kind of just been able to, you know, own the space because of lack of anybody else, and now all of a sudden one of these stores, a Cards HQ, a Card Vault, a Fanatic shop, pops up in your city, that might be a little bit of a different story. So we'll have to see how. It's just something interesting to keep our eyes on. Brady carries a lot of weight in the hobby, and him being involved with a card shop is definitely noteworthy. I mean, the guy could just walk in and sign his own autographs whenever he wants, and everyone would lose their mind coming in to buy stuff or chase or whatever the case might be. So we'll see where things go from here. Something interesting to keep an eye on. We also had, I think it was Bobby Witt, got in as an investor in Collects, one of the card scanning apps. It might have that one. I think it was Collects. They all sound the same. It is hard to keep all these hobby companies separate when they all basically have the same names with slightly different acronyms. But he got involved with that. In the other sports business news, I did the video on it on Friday. Probstein is launching his own live selling platform. Still not a lot of details on what that'll look like or what it means for his ongoing relationship with eBay past this year. But we will have another live selling platform coming soon. And like I said in that video, interesting timing on the announcement, given all the Whatnot drama that we've had over the last month. And that space, though Whatnot is the dominant platform, don't get me wrong, that space still seems open for someone to leapfrog them. Because Whatnot basically wins because they were first. And we'll just see if they can hold on to that spot. I don't think it would be an easy fight, but I don't know that that platform is actually the best out there. I think there is something better that could happen, but I don't live in the live selling space. So I laughed out loud when I saw this. So Topps launched a Captain America Brave New World. I have not seen the movie yet. Ask me again in a couple hours what I think about it, and I'll be able to tell you. Brave New World Topps Now card around the movie release. And it was hilarious to me because earlier this week, I was literally driving around for work like I do, and my thoughts ramble into collectible spaces where I get a lot of ideas for videos and stuff like that. It's just, driving the car. And I thought to myself, would they do Topps Now for non-sports? There's a Marvel release this weekend. Could they do a movie poster card or, an iconic image from the movie itself that was maybe in a trailer? All sorts of stuff. Could you get, now this doesn't, but this is just, there's parallels of this card and then there is an SP chase of an alternative movie poster or whatever. So there's some things to chase in here, and these are a little bit on a premium stock. They're $16 a pop because they're 130 point. What I would like to see personally, what if the chase in here was a dual auto of Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford? Now we're doing something. Numbered parallels are cool and all when it comes to the live action stuff. But let's get some actor autos in there as chases Topps if you're listening. That would be awesome. Or, maybe there's different cards. You can have different ones with different chases depending on the character. But mix in some actor autos. How about, let's take it another level. And maybe they'll do this for a high-end product. But could we get something that has a screened used, and what I mean by screen used is that it was actually used on screen. There's memorabilia for movies in cards. There's stuff that has been, it's basically like sports cards. There's game used and non-game used, like player worn versus game used. There's like extra wardrobe costumes that they have in the back that maybe never actually get used, and they'll cut those up and put them in cards. And then there's stuff that was actually used on the screen for the production of the movie. What if they had swatches of on-screen used Captain America's suit or a piece of the shield or whatever? I mean, you could kind of take this in a million different directions if that was the chase on the Topps Now card. I think stuff like that would be really cool. That would entice me to really do one of these chase things. Now, that being said, I did buy one of these because, of course, I did. I'm a degen. But I think that there's a lot, as a test run, I get it. Like, this is their first one out of the gate. I think there's a lot of different ways they could twist this, take this, and put some really cool chase stuff in there for the MCU stuff. So, interested to kind of see where this goes in the future. I just found it funny that I was thinking about this very thing. And then later in the week, Topps announces it. Switch over, talk a little bit about Series 1. I ripped my jumbo box. We'll dive into some charts and graphs portion of the show here. Market Movers, link in the description down below. A little bit of a coupon code. Gets a couple weeks for free. if you want your own charts and graphs. Jumbos are sitting a little over $200. Hobby boxes are sitting a little over 100. Listen, I think the prices on most of these slide down once we get a little post-release. The rookie class sucks. Let's just be honest. Dylan Cruz and James Wood are perfectly fine. I don't know that they're enough to anchor the product. So I just don't see them carrying the product to the moon. We got very spoiled last year with a massive rookie class. The big chases this year are going to be, which it's kind of typical of Series 1, are going to be random SP things. And there are a lot of them in there. But a lot of it's not rookie stuff. This is not a rookie-based product this particular year. It is much more based around the SSPs, the golden mirrors, the image variations, the no-name variations, the true photo image variation. You know, they got so many different stuff out there. We have Barry Bonds autos to chase, Larry David autos to chase. So it's going to be based more around that sort of stuff than actually pulling a good rookie card. So kind of keep that in mind when you're going into it, that's what to expect. We'll look at some singles prices here in just a second. The overall design, you know, I talked about it in the video where I opened the box. It's fine. I don't love it. I don't completely hate it. I think the backs are going to cause them to be a nightmare to grade, so factor that in. I think the fronts are relatively fine. I like a little bit of foiling that they did on it. Overall, it's a pretty solid design. I have no real gripes with it. But like I said, I do think they're going to be pretty tough to grade just based off those backs alone. And the fascinating part will be, is this design that they use for Topps basketball? Remember, we're getting a Topps basketball release this year, later this year. 2025-26 Topps basketball is going to be licensed. I would assume it's going to use the same design that we're seeing here. I don't know that they'd reinvent the wheel for that. I don't know if that's going to be, they're going to keep that design across multiple SKUs of product, or not multiple SKUs, multiple sports. Like it is the design for Topps in 2025. That's the design across all the sports going forward. And then the next year, you know, baseball kind of gives you the preview for what it looks like, or do they make some slight tweaks, or is it completely different? I don't know. That'll be something to keep an eye on as we move throughout the year. But Topps Series 1, it's a perfectly fine product. It's a cheaper rip, especially on a hobby box, but you're not ripping it chasing the rookies. I just put in Topps 2025 Series 1 and sorted by most expensive sales and then went down. So if some of these best offers were accepted cheaper, I'm not 100% sure exactly what they went for. I think I only saw one where it was crossed out, but I just kind of wanted to get a feel for what some of the bigger chases were. The no-name stuff seems to be selling really well. We have one Larry David redemption that went for $4,000. Well, maybe $4,000. Also, one is up for auction right now. I think it's sitting around $2,000. Once again, more no-name variations. This was a very strong sale on the 30th SSP auto for Ohtani. That's actually a really nice looking card, I'm not going to lie. With the 90s throwback with the blue, that looks really good. Some of the wood designs, the heavy lumbers have been doing very well. The Barry Bonds stuff has been selling very strong. That's his first chase auto in this product in quite a long time with the Juju Watkins. You're going to see a bunch of Barry Bonds stuff here. But some of the sales that you're seeing on this other stuff, not much in the way of rookies. It's all vet players. You know, here's some Griffey autos. Here's one. Here's a Dylan Cruz no-name variation. Those are numbered to 35. But generally speaking, give you a little bit of an idea. Oh, here's an Ohtani all aces. These all aces look fantastic. I love the all aces last year. I believe the all aces are actually pretty hard to hit this year. So if you pull an all aces, just kind of file that away. These are, at least in photos, I'd love to see one in hand. These look gorgeous, in my mind. But I was a big fan of all aces last year as well. So that's just kind of what you're looking at for Series 1. It's going to definitely be a vet-based product, not a rookie-based product. You're looking for those SPs, those special things that they inserted in there. All right, it's time. switch over, full charts and graphs mode. Let's talk about the Super Bowl and one Mr. Patrick Mahomes. I had this stuff queued up to do a standalone video all week long, and then other things just kind of got in the way of it, so I just ended up pushing it back to this. Let's talk about some Super Bowl prices. We're going to look at Mahomes, we're going to look at Hurts, and we're going to look at Barkley, and then we'll finish up on a little bit of basketball. Mahomes prices have definitely come down since the Super Bowl. The PSA 10 has not yet. There hasn't been that many sales post Super Bowl. And the other thing to keep in mind, anytime you were talking about the silver PSA 10 of that card, that is notoriously, when the market sours on that card, one of the most shilled cards ever. I have seen more shill bidding on Mahomes silver 10s over the years than any other card that I follow regularly. So do factor that in if you are in the market to buy one. Very much deep dive the last few comps to make sure that there wasn't shenanigans going on with them. So that one you can see kind of stalled out. It had a couple sales after. Here is the PSA, or the Optic Hollow. Had a little run up prior to the game, and then you can see the big dip down after. The red and yellow PSA 10, same thing, has had a pretty big dip down after. And then the PSA 9 has also been trending down after the game. I blew this out to show us from August 1st, so basically preseason, all the way through today, kind of where you sit. The PSA 10, once again, shows up 40%, but it has had zero pullback. I don't know that I buy that when everything else has had significant pullback across the board. The Hollow, you're barely up year over year, or not year over year, but from the beginning of this season. The red and yellow, you're down slightly, and the silver 9, you were down slightly. Let's shorten this up and look at the last 14 days to kind of show that immediate post-Super Bowl and a little bit before hype cycle. Once again, the silver prism is stagnant, but none have sold in a few days. The Hollow 10 is down about 10%. The red and yellow is down about 20%. The silver is down about 10%. So roughly a 10 to 15, maybe 20% haircut, depending on the card. We'll just have to wait and see where the 10 settles in at, if it moves at all. To me, the scary thing is, what does the future hold for that team as they continue to age and get more expensive? Can they reload? I get it. They had an amazing year win-loss wise this year, but it really felt like this season was duct taped together. Hey, they got to the Super Bowl, so what the hell can I say? But the Eagles smacked the shit out of them. I mean, just dominated them from one end of the field to the other. So let's transition over, look at some Eagles stuff. Jalen Hurts, once again, we are going back to August 1st, so the preseason. A little bit all over the board here, but long story short, you were ever so slightly up. His stuff dipped quite a bit in the middle of the season, and then the Super Bowl rebounded to basically bail you out. Up at the top here, I pulled a PSA 10 Contenders Rookie Ticket Auto. That's up about 34%. His Silver Prism is up about 16%. I did some color matches here. Neon Green is up about 7%, and just the base green is up about 5%. But you could see that dip down in the middle there, and then the rally back up because of the Super Bowl. So he did get a decent bump just from the Super Bowl win. Same thing if we look at the last 14 days on this, you could see some pretty decent increases across the board. The silver is up 35% if you're just looking at the last 14, as opposed to stretching it way out. The green is up 40%. The Contenders Auto is up almost 40%. But the biggest winner of pretty much the entire NFL season, Saquon Barkley. This is going back to August 1st once again. Up at the top there in the red, I have his Silver Prism Auto in a PSA 10 up 267%. His Contenders Rookie Ticket Auto, that's one of the variations. Contenders has so many variations. Up 166%. His regular PSA 10 Hollow up 230%. And then the base Prism even up 216%. Now, lower pop on that for a base Prism, only 1,000 in a PSA 10. When you could compare that to some basketball stuff, is absolutely wild. But just a massive year overall. Now, His stuff was trending up most of the season and then just went absolutely nuclear in the back half throughout the playoffs. So end to end, hell of a year for Saquon Barkley, price wise. Hell of a playoff run, hell of a player. Had an absolutely dominant year, and it is kind of refreshing to see a position player basically really dominate the pricing on stuff like this. We have not seen something like this in a while. I mean, he's seeing bigger gains than even Hurts is post Super Bowl and throughout the season. So let's close out, look a little bit of basketball. I just wanted to circle back in and look to see what Luka and Fox stuff is doing. Now that we've got a little bit of time post trades, these were two of the bigger spike ups from trades. Luka got all the way up to almost $1,800. He is currently settled back down into the $1,300 range ish. Still maybe potentially trying to find its floor. I think it's probably going to end up leveling out in that $1,200 or $1,300 range. He's back playing though, so that could swing things, obviously. But you can already see it did not take long post trade. You had that 1 or 2 days of peak euphoria to sell at the peak, and now it's already starting to come back down again. And we're seeing the same thing with De'Aaron Fox. Prior to, it was going for about $200, got all the way up to almost 300, and now it's back down to 225 again. So it just goes to show your windows to sell into these hype cycles can sometimes be extremely narrow, and you have to be ready to go. You have to be ready to go on that. And don't get cute on going back and forth with stuff sometimes. Sometimes you end up making poor decisions because you try to max out the value of the card rather than just taking a very strong offer. Maybe that would be worth a standalone video to discuss, but just kind of wanted to show the movement and how quick these markets shift once someone comes out of the limelight due to getting a trade or something happening on the field or whatever the case might be that causes the parabolic spike. That just does not hold that long. You have a very limited window there on when to act on it. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. As always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. No idea what I got cooking this week content-wise, but I'm sure, as always, the hobby shall provide, as it always does with nonsense. I got a couple things in the back of my mind, but nothing in stone yet. We will catch you, boys and girls, on the next one. Peace.